Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the Stuff I Heard podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Peak. And this is episode 277 with Gregory Steele. Say hi, Greg.
Hey, Greg. Oh.
So, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing fine, my friend. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Christmas is right around the corner. Thank you for the Christmas gift, by the way.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah,
I'm gonna be putting photos up on everything. It's Boba Fett helmet crashing through the wall. It's a nightlight.
Yeah, that's right. Man, you know, that's what happens. Like when you go to TJ Maxx, I never recommend it, but you go there and you see all this random crap, and so I'm seeing those, and I'm like thinking about your two podcasts with Treadaway, where all you guys are talking about is Boba Fett and the Mandalorian. There you go.
Yeah.
So so it just seemed right. You know what I mean?
Well, Treadaway and I have been doing a Monday morning or Monday, I guess afternoon. It's morning for him, but afternoon for me. Podcast.
What, like 7 p.m.?
Well, he's like, I'm like, text him at 10:30. He's like, can we do it at 1 or 2? Yeah, I've just been up a few hours, whatever, man.
Yeah.
Just whatever.
I got up at 3:30.
I got stuff to do, but we can let it linger. That's fine. Whatever. But yeah, so we've been doing the Double J Jedi talk. I don't know how I came up with that. We were just riffing one day, and since then we've been talking about whatever we saw on The Mandalorian on Friday. I watched it on Friday. He watches it whenever he gets a chance. But he texted me the giant word "dude" today, and I was like, okay, he's seen it before he went to work.
That's what he told me. He told me he saw it. I talked to him on the phone, and he's like, have you seen it yet? I'm like, don't talk to me about it. I haven't seen it yet.
I won't ruin it for anybody. We won't talk about it. I will say, though, if you're going to watch it, there is a bonus 4-minute thing at the end of the credits. So you're going to geek out whenever you see the stuff happening, and the ending is going to come, and you see the credits, and you're going to be like, wait, like hit the fast forward on your remote, go past the credits, and then when you'll see like a cityscape, and you stop it and play it from there, because there's like 4 minutes and 20 seconds or whatever. There's a thing at the end that kind of, you know, it's that old Marvel trick of, hey, let's tease him with something that's coming.
How did you figure out that there was that at the end?
Because when it was ending, like I hit pause for a second, and it still had like 7 minutes, and I was going, so credits don't last for 7 minutes.
Right, I gotcha.
So I thought, let's see what happens. So I hit the fast forward, and there's a bonus 4 minutes at the end.
Man, you were so smart. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, well.
So let me tell you this piece of information before we get deep into this podcast.
Okay.
So Lane has a friend of hers who I guess has this woodworking shop, and she makes all this wood stuff. And so she bought for a couple other friends of ours Christmas gifts of, they're kind of like tree branches that are hollowed out so you could put them on the wall, put a plant in them or whatever. So the whole point of everything I'm saying is that she put some sort of varnish on them, and they're on a table right behind me. And that varnish, if I like start to get loopy and crazy, it's because I'm like high off of that stuff.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I'm standing like so far away from those things, and I can still smell that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't let that stuff cure, I mean, that's why I tend to do everything out in the garage with the garage door open, because it's got the lacquer stuff's got some smell to it. I mean.
It's not as good as Elmer's or anything, but you know, hey.
Yeah.
I'm huffing. I'm sitting here huffing, and you just don't even know it.
I haven't been able to do any woodworking since the eye injury. I've just been very leery about operating a saw with only one good eye. Plus, I can't really see
like this, like one good eye and 3 good fingers.
Yeah.
Like, hey,
I can start selling fireworks down by the freeway. Oh, we got to trust this guy. Look at him. He knows his way around fireworks.
You and Jason Pierre-Paul.
Yeah.
That's great.
But yeah, you know, the eyeball thing is a process, and it's been taking forever, and I'm eager to go back to work like normal and to kind of get into a normal routine. But also just like everyday stuff is really taken for granted in ways that we didn't realize, or I never realized before. Simple things like going to the grocery store and picking something off of the shelf and going, hey, I'll just put it in my buggy right there. You turn around, you're like, where'd the buggy go? Oh, there it is. You know, I mean, just imagine holding your hand like that. It's kind of, but with this, like I can see some that's blurred. So as I come across, I second guess what I saw. I'm like, what did I just see? So I'm having to take a little extra time. And I went to the store with my wife today, and I'm sure she was a little aggravated with me. She was probably like, "What are you doing? You just put it in a buggy." And I'm like, "I can't see the buggy until I have to stare at it. I have to concentrate."
Normally, Treadaway at nighttime sees like multiples, and he like tries to pick the middle one. In your case, you see, you do the one on the right.
I gotta say though, I'm pretty proud of him. He's really coming into his own right about now. I mean,
I talked to him about his job, and today he called me today, and I talked to him, and he was kind of telling me that he's going to be like a nightline manager at the Melting Pot in Myrtle Beach.
Yep.
But the interesting thing he was telling me is he's like that he has to train and qualify on every single job in the restaurant before he can go into management training. So he said they're making him like prove he can wash dishes, and then prove he can cook, and prove he can serve, and prove he can do the jobs of everyone else before they'll say he's okay to manage other people that have to do those jobs. I think that's a kind of cool idea.
Yeah. When Dolores worked for Southeastern, they kind of had the same thing with their management. You had to work and do basically everybody's job before you could be then in charge of the people who are doing those jobs, which is smart. Because that way you understand what they're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I got to be honest with you. In the hospital setting, like a lot of people manage, they have no earthly idea, what's going on and what you're doing and all this stuff. So it's a challenge. So I think that's pretty cool. But he seems to be happy. He seems to be enjoying it. He seems to be doing really well.
Well, good.
And it's good for him, to be. He's someone that I would kind of assume is sort of at risk to have problems with jobs during COVID because all the restaurant stuff. But obviously his restaurant's open, so that's good.
Well, and in the past, working as a bartender, that's always been kind of a risk thing because being in Myrtle Beach, they're very busy in the summer, and then during the winter, they're very slow. But getting into management, there's sort of a trade-off there, but it's also the trade-off, like you said, for the bigger picture of doing something more, which he also talked about taking his classes online for the doing the data security, cybersecurity stuff. And, he's taking these classes through Google that are really, kind of getting him excited about doing something else, which is something that he kind of wanted to do whenever we got out of high school. Before there was an internet, he was really into computers, and he was really into the idea of being a computer programmer. And when he went into USC back in, God, what was that, 94? Yeah, 94.
It's got to be 94,
because I went in the Marine Corps in 94, and that was same year. He, was into computer science. Like that was a division of, it wasn't computer programming or anything else. It was computer science at the time. Little did we know that if he'd have jumped into it right then, he'd have been on the ground floor of the internet becoming a thing. I mean, that's a lot of people don't know, like, Rodney's dad, is kind of one of the forefathers of that. He was one of the early adopters of working for Prudential Life and having to keep up with the computers. They said to him one day, "Hey, we want to wait for our offices in Chicago to talk to the ones in New York and Dallas and LA." And he goes, "I could do that." They're like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, I could figure that out." And like, he was one of the early adapters of, before the internet, there was a thing called the intranet, basically just allowing these computers to talk to each other so that they could share information immediately. And he was one of the ground floor people to do that, and so it's kind of interesting now that, to see how it's grown and our part in it, as far as, people we know that have been integral in it. But Treadaway would have been on the ground floor of that going to college at the time. He would have gotten right into it. But as the Afro Man song says, but then I got high,
Well, I was thinking like, how it's like that butterfly wings thing, like a butterfly flaps its wings somewhere. It's like these chance things happen in life and terrible things happen to the world. It's like Treadaway and Al Gore, right? No. I think if that had happened, things would have gone poorly for everyone, I think.
We would have gotten porn a lot faster. I mean.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
He's like, "We can figure this out. I'm pulling an all-nighter."
Treadaway would have been like, "Pornhub, I'll show you."
Yeah.
It would be like, in Back to the Future, that third one or whatever, where Biff gets all the, the things for the thing to know who won everything, and he controls the whole world. That's how it'd be. Like Treadaway would be on the top of that building, like "You're peons."
Him and Trump Tower, they'd be like across the street from each other. They'd stand on top of the buildings, and they'd be giving each other the finger.
No, all the Trump Towers would be called Treadaway Towers. Yeah, he'd own the world.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's right.
I'd be like,
Well,
I know that guy. They're like, you can't come in here.
I was going to be like, well, at least like he likes us, so we'd be okay, right?
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Once he got that far into it, he'd be like, I've seen your search history. You're not allowed in here. They're like, this is, we have to detain you downstairs.
He's like, dude, he's like, I started this whole empire and you're searching crap I never even thought of.
To be fair, there's a lot of inspiration out there.
Yes, exactly. You're like, I'm an inspiration. What are you talking about? Yeah.
Yeah. So one of my favorite comedians is Bert Kreischer, obviously. And he talks often about, one of his genre of porn that he got into was quicksand porn. And he's like, have you ever Googled it? And I thought to myself, when I heard it, I went, no, I have not.
No, I have not.
But now that you mention it, I might have to check it out. And he said, it all started as a kid when you're watching like Gilligan's Island or something like that. And they get, Marianne gets stuck in the quicksand. And it's like, oh no, I can't get out, and I was like, I think I have the same idea because I was into that kind of, Wonder Woman, her thing, she'd lasso you up and you couldn't move. Oh no, I can't move, and she's like, I got you now. And you're like, okay. I thought, yeah, that kind of did it for me as a kid too. And I'm like, maybe I need to Google that. I Googled it. I was like, nope, not for me. All right. Right away, you're like, nope, this isn't for me. Nope.
There's a 0% chance that doesn't put you on some sort of national security watch list. Now it's you and Bert Kreischer are the only two on the list.
Well, I'm sure that I'm not the only person that looked for it after he mentioned it, but yeah, there is that.
My thing is like, I don't really want to do this, but considering that there's such a thing as quicksand porn and like tentacle porn.
Now you're curious.
Yeah, well, no, it's like, could you just Google random stuff and put porn behind it, and what would you find? Like, woodchuck porn. See what you get, right? I mean, I don't know. Probably furries. I don't know.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, just
woodchuck
whatever,
porn,
right? Yeah, it's just hubcap porn. Who knows? Just whatever.
Hubcap.
I mean, hell, if quicksand's a thing, it could be anything, couldn't it?
You never know. Now there's a whole thing about getting stuck. Oh no, I'm stuck in the dryer.
What?
Yeah. Come help me out. And she's stuck in the dryer.
With her ass hanging out.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah. Everything has a genre and everything has a source. I don't understand the stepbrother or stepmom thing.
Oh man, that's really
none of that makes any sense to me. The incestuous stuff is just ugh. I don't get it.
I mean, I don't, there's a whole bunch of it out there but so here's the thing, so I work in infectious disease now, of course, as you know, right? And so I deal with a lot of sexually transmitted diseases and HIV and all this kind of stuff. And so if for some reason that you manage to get good relationships with your patients, they tell you stuff, right? Like all kinds of stuff.
Oh yeah, because they trust you. You help them,
Right. And so I guess the one thing that I can say for sure that's true is that any possible thing you can think of that's weird, people are doing it. Like the thing that you're like, nah, no one's doing that. Mm-hmm, they are. Like just whatever, and they're doing it.
Yeah,
and there's people. Yeah, I mean, it's something else. And the other thing is that none of it is like stuff that started in 2021 or 2020 or whatever. I mean, this stuff's they're doing it for years ever, right? Like
yes,
Roman times, whatever. So it's kind of strange, but all the stuff you can think of.
The Kama Sutra was a book written 200 years ago.
Oh,
1,000 years ago?
Yeah, long time. That's right.
I have no idea when it was written, but there's colorful pictures that say, hey, have you tried
they have hamsters back then? Did they have hamsters? I don't know if they had hamsters. Ah, there you go.
My mom gave me a Baby Yoda Pez dispenser.
Oh.
Isn't that cool?
You put your weed in it.
That's so silly. But so anyway.
Listen, I wanted to see about spending some time talking about, for some reason, and I don't know why. Well, first and foremost, I talked to you or texted you last night about finishing watching The Queen's Gambit.
Yes.
Now, have you talked about that on the podcast before? I don't know that I listen to your podcast when I'm at work, but I don't remember you specifically mentioning.
I didn't want to spoil anything. I just said I highly recommend watching it. I mean, enough people have seen it now. We can talk about it. It's not going to ruin anything for anybody. And I've also realized that if I'm going to talk about something, just talk about it, because people are eventually going to come back around and be like, I've seen it now. I can listen to that episode. But I just have to say up front, like if anybody hasn't seen it, just spoiler alert, and then fast forward a while, and then we'll talk about something else. But
well, you can say though, if for some reason you haven't seen it, I think you should see it. I think it's great.
Fantastic. I mean,
it was great.
I loved how I walked in and my wife was watching it, and like I saw it being, like if you like this other stuff, you may like this, and I'm going, okay. Yeah. I walked in and my wife was watching it, and she was like 4 episodes in, and she was like, you would love this, and I was like, okay. So I sat down and started over, and then we finished it together, and it was great. I mean,
well, you look at it and you're saying to yourself, do I really want to watch a show about chess? But it's not a show about chess, right? Like, but it has chess in it. But
it's more, in my opinion, it's more about not only female empowerment, but it is sort of female empowerment, because at the time that they're portraying, women weren't allowed to really have a voice. They weren't really taken seriously for anything that had anything to do with having brain power. I mean, and here she was, this character who could play world-class chess on a level that most people were like, I don't even know what you did. Like, she would meet people and be like, hi, I'm so-and-so. Yeah, you beat me in 6 moves at so-and-so. Right. Like, oh yeah, I forgot. Like, she's just defeating everybody. And I love that style of character, and the fact that she would get into situations where she's playing multiple people at the same time, and to have her brain work in that way, but also a very flawed character in the fact that she dealt with, obviously drug addiction. I mean, that was a huge part of the show, was like, yeah, I have this, this gift, but it's also kind of with a curse. It's the sort of the superhero story that's relatable in a lot of ways.
Well, and I think it's a story about, it's kind of a story of redemption, I believe, right? And it's a story about youth, because you figure that, like, how many people, all the people in their youth that are super talented pretty much are going to have this thing where they're on this meteoric rise, but then they're not going to really, because of their age, appreciate whatever that is and sort of goof it up. And then your hope is that they rebound from it. And she rebounds from it, right? Now, there are people in life that never rebound from it and kind of waste all that talent.
It's grit. It's the adverse situation and overcoming adversity no matter what, and she was faced with a lot of adversity. I mean, being in an orphanage and being told you can't do this, you can't do that. And just
really like too about how it was really a story also about friendship, and it was a story about when you're going through the shit you're going through, like, your friends are the people that have your back, right?
Yeah.
I thought, like, that was one of my most enjoyable part of it. And not to mention that, but like the majority of the people you'd call her friends in the thing were people she'd kind of shit on all along the way, who really were still behind her. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And she finally realizes that those are her friends, and she finally realizes the value of that. And she finally realizes the value of her talent. And I really loved the end. I thought it was great.
That plus there was the touching moment of her going back to the orphanage and seeing the photo and all of the stuff that the guy who taught her how to play had kept over the years, and he was very much a father figure of her life and a mentor in her profession, and it was so endearing to see that moment pass. But also, the headmistress walks by and kind of recognizes her and goes, "You should be a mess," and she's like, "Yes, I should." Like, there's a little, if I know why you're here and it's good to see you, but like you need help. And she knows she needs help at the time. I mean, she's really battling with addiction, and, and my wife, made a comment when we were watching it. She said, why is she doing all this? And I said, what do you do when you accomplish all of your goals and you're young? Like, she did it without really a lot of backlash. And then suddenly she has everything. And there's sort of a moment where you go, okay, what am I going to do now? Like,
well, I think so. So this is, I see what you just said, and I mean, I understand what
like
you're
Kurt
saying.
Kurt Cobain was a heroin addict who became a rock star, and then when he had money, he's like, well, I can buy more heroin now, and that's ultimately what killed him. I mean,
well, in her story, though, what I wanted to say was just basically that she didn't really reach the pinnacle of what she wanted, because she said it a few times about playing the Russian guy that she was scared, right?
Yeah.
And when she kind of imploded and showed up to play him hungover and lost or whatever, it made her more scared. And then she had this pending trip to Russia where I think she knew she was going to end up having to face him again, and she was scared. And I mean, so I think that you know, she just sort of fell apart because of this fear that she finally overcomes, but she doesn't really ever overcome that fear though until her friends help her out, which is what I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, the black girl that comes to her at, at the very end is her friend from the beginning, who's, you know, going to tell her straight and say, you got a problem. Like there's like, I don't
Get it
care.
together, right?
Like if this is what you want in your life, you've wasted a life, but you've got more potential, and the willingness of her to just give up her life savings of, here, you need this money to go do this thing. Here, take it, run with it, do something more with your life than you'd planned. And you're right. It is about friendship at that point.
And she calls herself, the black girl calls herself family. She's like, we're family. They grew up in the orphanage together.
Absolutely.
And so she's like, this is what family does, right?
Yeah.
And I think for her, it was a foreign concept. I mean, I think that, I think you see, like, the reason I think that was a good show, and honestly, it's one of the few shows, I don't watch very many shows when they're over, I want more of them, right? That's pretty rare. Most of the time they overdo them. They don't generally ever underdo them. So at the end of that show, I was like, man, I don't necessarily want this show to be over, which is pretty unusual. I thought it was good. But they did a good job of pacing her development, pacing her rise, pacing her fall, pacing her redemption. I thought it was really awesome in the last match of chess where they showed you just how superior she was from the standpoint of, she could look up at the ceiling and like pretty much envision all of the different possibilities that could happen in the game. I thought that was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool. Yeah. But it's a good show.
Yeah. For many of the grandmasters, I'm sure that's how it sort of happens. They don't actually see something in their like holograms or whatever.
Sure.
But they work out moves in their mind, and being able to keep track of all those moves, and they do replay those games in their mind. That's how they get better. And for her, it had more to do with the accomplishment of, I want to be the best. And, when the old gray-haired guy with the long frizzy hair gets up and shakes her hand, he goes, "It was an honor and a privilege to be beaten by you." I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I know it. Yeah.
That's even better than beating the Russian dude. But then she gets to the point where he's like, do you want to call it a tie? And she's like, no.
Yeah, heck no. Yeah. I know. I enjoyed that. Yeah.
I also enjoyed her playing the young boy, that's the Russian kid who he's been training his whole life to be this, star Russian chess player. And it's tough for her. And she tells him, she's like, this is the best game I've ever had. Like, she sort of, gives a nod to him of, hey, keep it up, which I think that kid's going to be back in next season. I mean, because they've signed on for more seasons.
Well, that's what I was. So that was the question that I had: is are there more seasons? Because they were calling that a limited series. Although I did read that was the number 3 show, most watched show in 2020 on Netflix. So you'd assume that if that's true, they'd have to have more seasons, right?
It was their number 1 scripted show of 2020.
Yeah, because number 1 was a cartoon and number 2 was like something reality, maybe.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but it was. I really enjoyed it. And I also liked. The thing about her is that it's a lesson too about how to be the best, because what happens with people who have a lot of talent is sometimes they feel like that they could just rely on that talent and they don't have to do any work.
Yeah.
And she spends a lot of that time where these other players are telling you need to read this book and you need to read this. He's like, well, see, read this. Yeah.
That's also what I got.
That stuff. I don't read that stuff.
That's also what I got from I know you probably haven't watched it, but The Marvelous Miss Maisel on Amazon Prime.
Oh, we watched it. Yeah, we watched that.
Okay,
yeah, so Lane loves it. Lane loves it.
For her, much like this chess playing lady, that her spark was immediately getting on stage and being able to kill, which a lot of comedians talk about. They've had one moment in their life where they got up and it's just awesome. Like they killed the crowd. It was just on fire, and that got them the bug to want to come back. Again, not necessarily being a student, just doing it. And then once you do it, you have to backwards engineer your thing and go, hey, how did I do that? How do I do it again? Like, it is sort of really similar. I know that people right now are like, what? You're going to bridge chess playing to stand-up comedy? Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm leaning myself to. Well, she had to learn in Miss Maisel, she had to learn, okay, this is what works. This is what doesn't work. She had to actually start taking notes and keeping track of things that she said or did. And, again, it is good to be talented, but it's also good to have hard work and put in the effort and put in that time.
Well, I mean, what you're talking about is like you're saying chess and stand-up comedy. What you're really saying is that you're saying
anything in life.
natural talent and then really succeeding. And I mean, I'll say baseball to that, because if you look at baseball and you look at high school, in every town, there's one kid that's so much better than everybody else.
Yeah.
So then all those kids get to the college level, and then there's a smaller group that's better, and then there's a smaller group, and you get to the major leagues, and there's this really small group, and people just fall out. And some of it is talent, but some of it is work. So my wife is a dental hygienist, Lane, and she used to clean Buster Posey's teeth. Buster Posey is the catcher for the San Francisco Giants.
Yeah.
He won 2 World Series. He won Rookie of the Year, whatever. And so she also cleaned his mother's teeth and his wife's teeth. And talking to his wife is a trip, because she's just always like, I had no idea. Right? Like, she had no idea that he was going to end up being that. Like, she was like, I always knew he was good at baseball, but I didn't know. But talking to his wife is really interesting, because she talks about what he's done to get where he is. She just says, like, during baseball season, she says, I don't see him. She says he's watching film every day, all day. Every pitcher that he's going to face, he's watching the videos. So there's a ton of people probably as naturally talented as he is, but there aren't that many people that are willing to put in that kind of work, right?
Well, and I made that reference exactly to Cam Newton. I mean, I was talking to somebody, I forget who, but, all throughout school, high school, college, he was a man amongst boys. I mean, he just was a bigger individual and a more talented individual and could rely on that talent. Then he got to the pros, and there's people that study him. And then once you're studied, then you can be defeated if you don't do your homework and you don't study.
Right.
Then you have it tough. Tom Brady, we always hear about the fact that Tom Brady studies film like a madman. Peyton Manning studies film like a madman.
Yes.
The people who do that work end up in the Hall of Fame. The people who rely on just I got an arm. I mean, you might have one Brett Favre in your life, but I mean, basically he's the last guy that just showed up with talent and went, I'll figure it out. I mean, and he did.
Right,
I mean, but you're only going to have one of those in your lifetime. I mean, you have to put in the work. I mean, talent will get you so far, but you do have to do your homework and be prepared and be willing to do whatever it takes to win. I mean, especially if you're in that kind of situation.
Well, I think
Dolores made a comment about the Queen's Gambit. She's like, how much was the purse that they were winning that she's able to afford all of this? And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, no idea about money, no idea how much they were supposedly winning, no idea about sponsorships. I mean, she never once talked about, this is my purse from winning this thing. She never mentioned an amount. It was just kind of assumed. And I was like, you can really make a living playing chess professionally? I'm like, I guess, whatever.
I think that, I mean, I don't know. It's interesting. At that time, it wasn't really that big anywhere other than Russia. So I don't know. But I think that it comes to real life too. I mean, yes, I put that into sports because I think it's a great way to understand it. I don't care what you're doing. I mean, I don't care what you're doing. Like in what you do, in every job that anyone has and all the people you work with, everybody has a different talents, and some talents lend themselves to make someone in a place where, like I have some talents I think that make me good at my job. Like I'm good at customer service and I treat people nice and I do some of these kind of things. However, in order to be good at my job, I have to really keep up on all of the research about antibiotics and infectious disease and all these kind of things. And I put a lot of time into doing that. You don't have to do that to do the job, but it makes you take better care of patients and makes you do a better job, right? So I think anyone who really succeeds in life, it's a mixture of some natural talent that you are willing to maximize, but also I think you got to do some work. If you don't do any work, I think you're never as good as you could have been, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, unless you're an artist and you're just painting and they go, oh, look, he can paint. I mean, I guess that would be the only qualifier that may be different.
I don't know. I mean, you look at an artist's paintings as a child and you look at, and they like you and I talked earlier about like writers write, painters paint. It's like, you got to do it to get better at it. Right.
Well, when you mentioned that, I couldn't help but think about a book that I've heard Joe Rogan talk about in the past. Him and several other people have talked about it. It's called The War of Art. Mm-hmm. And it basically talks about how you have to discipline yourself in order to constantly work at your craft. So you have to dedicate time. You have to dedicate effort. If you don't, then this war that you're up against with creativity will defeat you and you'll give up. Like you have to put in that time and you have to put in the reps. You know, Joe talks about how he prefers to sit down with a notebook and he said, and I make myself write, you know, an hour a day at something. I don't care what it is, something. Because even if it's garbage, he says, but it starts off with 15 minutes. Dedicate 15 minutes. Say, I'm going to spend the next 15 minutes writing. And before you know it, you spent 3 hours. And some of it may be garbage. Most of it may be garbage, but it may be something good. You know, the same thing with painting. If, like you said, painters paint. If you don't paint, then you can't exactly call yourself a painter. I mean,
well, you'll never get better if you don't do it, right? I mean, that's the thing is I don't know. There's a lot of people, and take me included, right? You can put me in this category where I'm like, man, I'd like to write a good book, right? And so, like, there's a lot of times in my past where I'd sit down and write a first chapter and then just never go back to it. And it's like, you're never going to be a writer, right?
Yeah.
Because writers write. Writers write. Writers enjoy writing. Writers want to do it. Writers are compelled to write.
Well, and you and I were talking about that earlier. I call myself a podcaster. I'm a podcaster. I'm a creator because I podcast and I create because I want to. I desire to. It's my whatever passion. I don't know what it is. You know, when we were in high school, they had the shadow day where you could shadow somebody in a career. And I shadowed a radio DJ because I thought maybe that's the path that I'm meant to go on. Which was strange for me at the time, because at the time I was still in that verge of just coming out of stuttering problems and being able to speak in public. I was still terrified to speak in front of people. But I thought that if I could get into that genre, then I could at least fake it for a few seconds and then switch on the music and be fine. You know, what's his name? Radio VJ, the creator of podcasting, Adam.
Carolla.
No, not Adam Carolla. No,
not Adam Carolla.
No, the guy that was the VJ on MTV with the big blonde hair. God.
Oh, I know who you're talking about, but I don't remember his name. I thought Adam Carolla was the guy. He's not the guy, huh?
Who is the MTV VJ that's considered the podcast creator? Let's ask Google and see what happens. It says, I didn't find anything for MTV VJ.
Oh. Well, I know who you're talking about, but I don't remember his name. But
Adam Curry.
Adam Curry. Gotcha. Oh, okay. I got you.
Remember that hair?
I do.
Okay. So
he's the father of podcasting?
He created podcasting with Steve Jobs. He had the idea of digitally making podcasts. He was, when he saw that the business was transforming into the internet, he had the idea of creating a open source, basically, version of being able to record yourself online and being able to access it online and everything else. Back when the internet was nothing, he actually bought MTV.com and offered it to MTV and said, here, I bought this.com. And they were like, we're okay. We're on AOL. He's like, okay. So he owned it for a while, and then eventually they bought it, and he used that money to turn around and invest. And he said, I just happened to invest in a little company called Jeeves. Remember Ask Jeeves?
Ask Jeeves, yeah.
He said, yeah, I sold that and bought a castle because he goes, Ask Jeeves is now Yahoo. He goes, basically.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But he had a severe Tourette's problem, and he's been on Joe Rogan's podcast a couple of times. And if you watch it, he can't talk for more than a few seconds without having a visible movement of his head where he moves, and blinks a lot. And when he talks, like it stutters at a certain point. He can get out about 4 or 5 seconds if he really concentrates before it kind of resets. And he said, I was perfect for MTV because I could fake it for at least 5 seconds. Hey, check out this clip for so-and-so. And he said, and then I would blink a lot and they'd flip the camera. And he goes, but I looked the part and I was willing to do whatever for little money. And he goes, so they let me do it.
Yeah.
But he's like, I wanted to do it. So we figured out a way to make it work.
Right. I got you. That's
but you talk about nowadays, if he was to get into it, from day one, they would go, no, pass. We'll get somebody else.
Right.
Yeah. But he wanted to do it. He made an outlet for himself. He pioneered the path. Without him, we wouldn't have podcasting today. So all hail Adam Curry.
That's it. Like, he should have a GoFundMe and everyone send him $1. Of course, he doesn't need it, I guess.
He's got a hit podcast out there. I mean, if you just search Adam Curry, Curry, it comes right up. I mean, he's kind of a big deal.
To like bust out into like cuss words every once in a while.
I don't know. I mean, he has. It's not that type of Tourette's, but it's yeah. I
keep telling people I have Tourette's. They don't believe me.
I have dyslexia really bad. That really messes me up. I didn't realize that until I watched Jacob go through it, my youngest boy.
Oh, really?
When I watched him go through it, I was like, how do you not see that word correctly? He goes, you're not seeing that word correctly. And I went, wait, one of us is wrong.
That's right. Yeah.
And we started reverse engineering it. And I was like, I think I have dyslexia. Well, that explains a lot about my reading. And I was like, oh, okay.
There you go.
So yeah. Funny things you learn, but
hey, let's to change the subject. How about that?
Okay.
Let's talk real quick about I don't know. Let's talk about like really cheesy movies that we like. What do you think?
Okay.
You have any really cheesy movies that you like?
I just watched a new movie that's on Amazon Prime called Black Box.
Mm-hmm.
It's got Felicia Rashad. Remember her as Miss Huxtable?
I do.
She's a scientist in this. She's like a mad scientist. And this is really trippy. And it's a really crappy movie, but I actually enjoy it.
So, yeah.
Nobody's going to watch it, so I'm going to spoil the crap out of it. So if you're going to watch Black Box, just don't listen to what I say. But anyway, it's a new movie. It's really garbage, but it's an interesting idea. It's basically this guy, you can tell he's been in an accident, and he talks about, he's got his daughter, he's got his hand wrapped up in a bandage, and they keep talking to him about, you've lost your memory and it's okay, it'll come back. And he's got pictures of his wife and his daughter, and everyone's like, oh, I'm so sorry, so-and-so passed away in the accident, it's good to have you back. And he can't quite put things together in his mind. He's just like, yeah, things are, I can't follow along in my thoughts, and so he goes to this clinic to like get some help, this special place, and his brother's a doctor, and his brother, is like, oh yeah, well, so-and-so is like an expert, and it's Felicia Rashad. She plays the doctor. And she gets him into this thing where she puts this like huge optic thing on him, and then this thing on his head that looks like a giant web of wires and this white stuff that kind of holds it all together. And she's like, I'm going to hypnotize you, and then we're going to enter this headspace. And she basically builds a space within his mind that he can remember things. And in that process, it comes out that this thing is after him, this weird distorted looking figure. And I'm thinking, is this a horror film? Holy crap. Because this thing's like walking backwards, and it's like cracking its bones and moving in ways it shouldn't move. And you can't see anybody's face because it's a memory, and the memory is supposedly shattered. And the whole time you're going, what the hell is after him? Like, is this did I just watch a scary movie? What is this? Come to find out, the guy is not the guy. The guy is having memories that were put there by Felicia Rashad. Her son, I forget his name, doesn't matter, had died 2 years ago, and somehow they uploaded his consciousness into this thing called a black box. And then this other guy was considered brain dead after this accident. They forced his memories into this guy. So she brought him back around, and suddenly anytime he looked in the mirror, he would see himself, but he was a different guy. And he eventually comes to terms with that, and he fights the other, the broken thing ends up becoming the guy who's originally lived in that body. And they're fighting with each other in this weird ultimate headspace where they're trying to figure out who's going to control the body. The whole thing's garbage, but I loved it.
Just to add to that kind of happened to me last week. So actually I'm some dude named Philippe. You know what I mean? So, just so you know, this is
what a coincidence.
This is Philippe. Sorry.
I didn't even know you spoke Spanish.
This dark dude behind me has really been bothering me. I just got to be honest with you.
Yeah. But there's a very charismatic young girl in the show. She's going to be a movie star one day. She's very good. We'll see her in more stuff. Felicia Rashad, though, is making a comeback. I mean, she was in a Christmas movie on Netflix called Jingle Jangle. She played the mom or the grandmotherly type character who's reading her grandkids this bedtime story thing. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, Felicia Rashad is really making a comeback. There's a lot going on all of a sudden. She's starring in movies. She's co-hosting and stuff. And I'm like, man, something must be going on. But now she was married to Lynn Swan, right?
I don't know.
She was married to Lynn Swan. I'll just say that. Yeah. She was married to Lynn Swan. And he passed away last year or a year ago. So probably after he passed away, she's like, what else am I going to do?
Yeah, that's right. Time to go to work.
Well, I mean, painters paint, actors act.
That's right.
So she's an actor. She's always been an actor. And I'm sure that she's probably taken up quite a bit of time in her life to, help raise kids and then grandkids. And then once her husband died, just like what the hell else am I going to do? She probably had friends around going, you can still act. We need a grandmotherly type character. And, this was a very different character for her to play in this black box show. I mean, this movie, to be like a mad scientist kind of lady. And she comes across as being quite terrifying, but also you sympathize with her. I mean, she does a decent job. And it's a really crappy movie, but I liked it.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice. So, I think the first crappy movie that I liked that I was thinking about was probably The Running Man. Do you remember that movie?
Yes.
It had Arnold Schwarzenegger in it.
That movie's garbage.
It had Richard Dawson in it. That's a terrible movie, right? But I
Plus,
still really
like the extended plastic everything that they were wearing. Like, it's like...
I like it. They made Richard Dawson.
Good luck, Yeah.
No, I liked it.
Didn't that have Chainsaw in it, or what's his name?
Well, so what it was is
Macho Man.
The premise of this movie. No, not Macho Man Randy Savage. It had there was one wrestler in there, but it wasn't Macho Man. But basically, the premise of this movie is that supposedly that if you get arrested for a crime, instead of going to jail, you can choose to go on this game show. This game show is
Cast
really
of Running Man movie.
Yeah. And so when you go on the game show or whatever, it's like you got to go to these different regions and there are
Jim Brown, Jesse Ventura.
Jesse Ventura.
That's what I'm thinking of. Jesse Ventura.
Your future governor of Minnesota.
Yeah. A conspiracy theory, brother.
Yeah.
The government's out to get you, man. Tower 7. I moved to Mexico for that reason.
So the point is anyway, when you go in this game, they have all these big tough guys that have all these different ways to kill you, and if you can live, you're supposed to be able to, make it, get pardoned to go on this big vacation, which they say some people did, and they got murdered. And so Arnold Schwarzenegger has like the cheesiest lines as usual, right? But I think that's a really cool movie. I always really liked it. It's on Netflix. I watched it again like a while back, and I was thinking, there's no way I'm gonna watch this whole movie. Yep, I watched the whole movie. It was good. I like it. It's trash, but I like it. Yeah.
It is garbage. It's total garbage.
It is.
It's excess. It's the giant hair. It's the
it's super 80s.
Added to everything.
It's all 80s.
It's very 80s. Yeah, you can definitely tell that a few of those people were on coke at the time. You're like, you're definitely on coke when you filmed this.
All of them were on coke. All of them. It was actually in order to be in part of the cast. It's like you had to be able to function on coke.
I'm sure that's how they cast most of the females in most of the things Arnold Schwarzenegger was involved in. It's like, hey, we'll just pay you in coke. And they're like, okay.
It's like, so what you're telling me is if I'm willing to kiss that dude, I get a bunch of coke. Okay. I mean,
well, I love the fact that he was married to Maria Shriver. He was a starch Republican and she was a Kennedy, basically. And he had a love child with the nanny who just happened to look just like him in their whole freaking life. My buddy Jay pointed out, he goes, at any point did that baby cry out, like, shut up, baby. You're going to ruin it for me.
It's not.
I don't know why he looks like me.
It's not a tumor at all. Which brings Kindergarten Cop, another stupid movie. Oh my God. That's
okay, so what's the one where he was in the Christmas movie where he has to get the action doll? What's that called? Jingle All the Way?
Jingle All the Way.
With Sinbad?
Oh, yeah.
There we go. There's another classic horrible movie that's worthwhile watching around this time of the year. And when you watch it, you're going to be like, this isn't so bad, even though it's really terrible.
Although I will admit that every single time I see something that has Sinbad in it, I know I'm going to be disappointed. This can't be good. There's no way this can be good.
The cool part about Sinbad is I heard him in a few podcasts when I think he did an episode on maybe it was on You Made It Weird with Pete Holmes, where he talked about he was so confident that he could kill on stage that he went to the place and he was like, listen, here's $100. You put me on stage. If I don't earn you $100, you can keep it. And they were like, okay. And they just put him on stage. Like he was just like, this is my path and I'm meant to do this. And, listening to Jay Leno, he kind of did the same thing. He was so confident in what he was doing. He would pretty much do the same thing. And neither guy, you're talking about two totally different backgrounds, but both guys basically believed in themselves so much they were willing to bet on themselves. And they were like, listen, here's some money to let me on stage. Just let me on stage. If I don't earn this money, then you'll never see me again. But if I earn this money, let me come back. And it was just their opportunity. And it's that drive, it's that confidence, and Sinbad had it. And listen, in everything he's done, he kills. If you watch his comedy now, he still kills. If he shows up acting in something, you're like, this guy's really great. I mean, as much as we want to make fun of him for being a caricature, he's great.
Yeah, he's talented. I mean, you can't do what he's done and not be talented. Yeah.
And the guy's got to be pushing his, 65 now or so?
Oh, yeah, he has been around.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
the other really stupid movie, and actually my favorite stupid movie that I like that I was going to talk about was Better Off Dead. And Better Off Dead, I think, is one of the best movies like of all time, although it is incredibly, incredibly stupid. It's meant to be incredibly stupid. I think that's why it's so great. You know what I mean?
The only character I really hated in it was the supposedly Asian guy, some dong or something.
Oh yeah. Oh no. So you're thinking of Long Duck Dong.
Long Duck Dong.
That's a different movie.
Wasn't he in that?
No, he wasn't in that.
I hate that character.
Yeah, Long Duck Dong was not in Better Off Dead. He was in one of those. Was it 16 Candles? He was in one of those popular.
Maybe.
80s
I mean,
movies.
but being friends with Rodney, like, I sort of felt embarrassed for them trying to portray like all Asian characters as this stupid, over the top, I can't speak English, and I thought, God, what a really, like, before it was okay to be offensive, I was really offended by that character. I was like, what a piece of garbage. But no, okay, so back to your movie. Yeah, so the I want $2 character that relentlessly chases him, wanting his $2, even though they're like skiing down a mountain on his bicycle and stuff like that, is hilarious. Plus, it introduced us to French women who, let's be honest, that was the reason I watched the movie. Just happened to have John Cusack, who we didn't know at the time, but was a star.
Yeah, there's so many good quotes from that movie. It's crazy. And the whole plot of that movie is that John Cusack is down on himself and he decides he wants to kill himself. So he's trying to kill himself, but he just fails continuously. And every time he fails. And so, the French girl, she kind of gets him, out of his shell. But
listen, at the time, a French girl would have gotten me out of my situation as well. I mean,
that French girl would have.
Yes, Lord.
Yeah.
But now, without that success of that really crappy movie, we wouldn't have him in other great movies such as Grosse Point Blank, which is one of my favorite movies that he does, because he's a contract killer who is being pursued by Dan Aykroyd because he wants to form a union of contract killers.
Yeah, that's correct.
Join my union, or I'm going to kill you. And they're firing at each other. He's like, I don't want dental. He's like, yes, you do. Hilarious idea for a show. We get to meet Minnie Driver in the process. I mean, hilarious idea for a show, though. I mean, yeah. But who would have had the idea to have that show if it wasn't for the fact that he succeeded and stuff like, previous movies?
Sure. Well, and another really stupid movie. And the problem with trying to do stupid movies is if they're too popular, I guess they probably don't fit. But the other one I'd really think about is Faceballs. Because when I think about Spaceballs, I think about so many parts in Spaceballs that are so iconic that it's totally ridiculous, right?
Like, well, it's Mel Brooks comedy. Everything is tongue in cheek. Everything is, he'll look at the camera and wink at you, be like, I don't know, who would do something like that? There's moments where they poke fun at even that, wherever he's got the helmet on and he's watching himself. Right. He's like, how does it work out? I don't know. We can watch the video. There's a video? He's like, yeah, it's already moved out. It's a new thing. It's the new. Like, that's what's happening right now in 2020. Like, it doesn't go to the theater. You can watch it now. He's like, now it gets to the part where he crashes.
Where are we now? Now we're at then. Where are we then? Now we're at now. I mean, every time.
Why tell me my helmet looks so big?
Every time I watch the movie, it's like you think that you watch the movie and there's this part that's your favorite part. And then you watch it again and there's a different. As I've watched it over the years, the first part I really liked was the part where they were combing the desert. That one really cracked me up. Yeah. And then I got to where I really, really, really like that part you were talking about, which is the one where they're trying to find the good guys and they're like, we could just watch the video. And he's like, what? He's like, yeah, videos come out now before the movie's even released. Yeah. And so the best part of that, though, is like there's that part before that where they go to super ludicrous speed and they stop and he crashes in. So they show that part. He's like, never show that part again. Yeah. It just makes me want to die. I love it.
Yeah. I like that. And I like the part where they visit Yogurt, who's supposed to be Yoda. And he's like, let's move on to the sequel, The Search for More Money,
Yeah, he's like,
that line to me is my
Spaceballs?
favorite line. He's like, Spaceballs
The
too.
toilet paper.
Yeah.
Spaceball. Yeah, that's wonderful.
Isn't
Yeah,
he adorable? He's got the little squeeze toy. May the force be with you. I love it. It's so
I love it.
stupid. That's
That is.
probably my favorite stupid movie. I mean, a lot of people watch that and they go, "This is totally dumb." That's my favorite stupid movie.
If you watch that movie and you can't enjoy it, I really don't know what's wrong with you. Like, it is so great. It is so funny.
It's not only the humor, but it's poking fun at the fact that you even think it's funny. Like that's the added joke to it. It's humor on top of humor. You know, it's breaking the fourth wall. It's everything.
John Candy in it from back in the day.
Joan Rivers.
That's right. Yeah, that was a great movie. Wow. But Rick Moranis was so good too. I mean, you know, I like it.
Yeah.
I'd like to, like, really honestly, like, I'm not one of those people who really cosplays or like really like does some super Halloween costume, but I think a dark helmet costume would be great.
I think if you showed up with a dark helmet costume, only half the people would get it. Most of the younger people would be like, "Why does he look like a weird Darth Vader Pez dispenser?"
Oh, listen, you want to know about a life frustration, which you probably have the same thing because I know you like train younger guys, right? But it's like I'm at work and I'm the old guy now, and there's all these young people, and you try to talk about Spaceballs, you try to talk about good music, and they look at you like they don't have any idea what you're talking about, and you're just like, I don't know why I'm talking to you people.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even need to talk to you. You say something, and it's just like crickets, and you're just like, you don't know anything good, right?
Yeah.
They don't know anything good.
Well, I remember, you know, I was working one time and delivering to this place this restaurant type bar place that had this hot girl that's supposed to pay me a check, you know, and over the speaker system, Nirvana comes on and it's the sound system's great. I'm like, oh, this is really cool, man. It's bringing me back. I graduated and this was popular. And she goes, yeah, I wasn't born yet. And I went, how's that possible? Like I did the math and I was like, oh my God, like, how old are you? She's like, I'm 22. I was like, what?
Yeah, I know it. It's terrible, isn't it? It's like the time when you first were at a bar and like you met someone in there that was like born in 1990 and you were like, what? Yeah, like craziness.
Well, and a realization came to me the other day, like the older we get, the more we're going to get into the age where the people that we knew are going to start passing away, like not just new tertiary, new intimately, you know?
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
and
yeah.
there is that weird moment where you're like, wow, I spent a lot of time with that person. Like there's going to be that time coming up and it's terrifying. I'm watching my stepdad go through that right now with some of his best friends who are passing away. And he's like, almost everybody I used to hang out with, they're all gone. Like he's like, I'm at the age where I can't make younger friends. Like it's just, I'm at this weird age of being a guy who's just like, well, I guess I'm the last one. It's like, that's the element of the Highlander you never see is him going, well, crap, I'm still here, you know, or the vampire Lestat where he's like, yeah, you're all going to die. Yeah. And this, you know, what the hell am I going to do now?
That's a great point. What do you do when you're the Highlander and there can be only one? And then it's just like, all right, now I got nobody to hang out with.
Yeah.
Right. Like you never even, that's a great point. I never even thought of that before. It's like, if you're the winner, you're like, damn.
Yeah.
Like I got nobody to talk to.
Well, I mean, when my grandfather passed away, there was probably, 200 people at his funeral. When my grandmother passed away, she was much older. There was maybe 10.
Yeah, well,
she's like, right? she made a point. She told me, before she lost her mind, she's like, I've outlived all my siblings. She had like 16 siblings. She's like, I outlived all my siblings and most of their kids.
Yeah. I tell you what, it is interesting. It's
well, my dad had a photo that he sent online and it makes perfect sense. He says the whole point is to die as young as possible, as late as possible. Like it had a picture of this old guy with a white beard and white hair, and he's riding a motorcycle and his hair is just flying back. He's like, and I was like, yeah, I mean, the point is to kind of enjoy some of this along the way, but it's, you get wrapped up in the routine of paying bills and doing your standard everyday stuff. You forget to sometimes just go, oh, this is what's fun. When you're a kid, a lot of times you're more concerned about if you look cool or not. And you're like, I don't know if I want to dance out there with everybody else. I look stupid when I dance. Well, so does everybody else.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Get over yourself. Nobody gives a crap,
right.
Especially in, most of those people out there you'll never see again. So what do you care?
So one thing I think is kind of interesting about you, and it's like me. So what happened with me is that we go to the beach every year for our anniversary, and pretty early on, and I mean, we're talking 17, 18 years in now, we started inviting my dad and my stepmom to come with us, and they're great to travel with, and we enjoy it, and we go. And the wonderful thing about traveling with them is that we don't have to do everything together. And if you want to do something or we do something, it's fine. We really enjoy each other. But my dad's getting kind of older. He just had a major back surgery. His health isn't all that wonderful. And I think about him, and I think to myself how glad I am that I spent all that time with him and we went on all those trips, right? And I know
Yeah.
you do that with your dad too. And I mean, if anybody's listening, it's like, one of the things I said on my podcast not too long ago, and one of the things I'll say here is just that you don't want to have somebody be gone and you regret that you just didn't spend time with them, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm really happy. I called my mom not too long ago, and my mom's in much better health than my dad, but he's older too. And I told her, I was like, look, we need to start getting together for a time every year, right?
Yeah.
Because I want to be able to look back and know that I spent that time with them and that I didn't, I don't want it to be like, oh my God, I should have spent more time with them, right?
Yeah.
And so I know you do that with your dad, but it's kind of like friends too. And when you talk about this COVID time and how isolating it's been and how hard it's been on so many people, and it's like you have all these friends, but you just don't talk to them. And I'm like, that's talk to them, call them, hang out, get the people that know you and that you trust and that you love, and spend some time with them. And what a big difference that makes in a time like this.
Yeah, I can't remember the time period it was, but it was sometime this summer. Treadaway come through town. He was going to visit some family down in Columbia. And he came by here and he was like, hey, I know COVID's a kind of a big deal. I mean, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, to come visit you. And I was like, yeah, come here. I'll lick your face. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, that's right.
I was like,
Yeah.
I because I mean, health wise, I was like, I'm the category of people who get it and get over it. Like if I'm okay, but like my parents and are very concerned, hey, if we get it, this is a big problem,
Well, it
especially my
should be.
mom.
Yeah, it should be. I mean, if you have health problems and immunosuppressed and you're older,
Yep.
those are the people at risk. But
Yep.
any younger people that aren't in any health conditions aren't in it. The death risk is incredibly low.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. It's kind of like one of those things where, so, God, I don't even know if you want to get into that.
No, we don't have to. I mean,
well, I was talking to somebody at work today about the fact that if I really have one complaint about all of the COVID stuff that's happened from the very beginning of COVID, it's like we should have had Ross Perot doing it, right? Because he always had those charts all the time. Because I feel like the one piece of information that we never were given that would have been the most valuable piece of information is Fauci should have been up there with this chart that had like age groups and talking about the death risk and talking about like why didn't the public get given the information of who was really at risk, and we need to protect those people, right? And that it's okay to open the schools because the kids really aren't at risk for spreading it or dying from it. And so
yeah,
I don't, we really we certainly didn't get great information from anyone involved, which I think is pretty bad.
yeah.
I think if we could have done something better, I mean, the idea that all deaths could have been prevented is silly because it's a pandemic and
No,
it's
you
not
can't.
possible. It's not possible. But the idea that we could have had better information to better make our decisions, we certainly could have. Right?
Well, not only that, but I think our numbers were skewed because a lot of facilities were getting bonus money if they had so many COVID cases. They were like, "Oh, well, you need extra money. We'll just send you extra federal funds."
Oh, no,
it's
look,
like so if you died of anything, it was like, "Oh, yeah. They tested positive for COVID. We could check that box." That's good.
There's people who like died of gunshot wounds who tested positive for COVID. That was called a COVID death. I
don't think very many people died of natural causes this past year. It's like, nope, that was COVID, definitely.
Yeah, all COVID. That's right. No, I mean, there's no doubt there's deaths from COVID. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that when you look at the 300,000 numbers, that's not all COVID, and a lot of it's not COVID. Now, whether or not you got COVID and you had comorbid conditions and you died because COVID put stress and then your comorbid conditions got worse, okay, we can call that a COVID death. There were tons of them that really weren't.
But you might have had 10 other underlying things that caused it. Yeah. I mean,
well, testing is
the only one I actually agree with is the one where the husband says, or the wife says, "Hey, if I gained weight since COVID," he's like, "Well, you've always been kind of overweight." I mean, okay, that may be because of COVID. he may have died because of COVID.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Stupidity, right? Yeah. Well, in our other, I mean, so I just wish I think we could have gotten better information, and you can blame basically our leaders and whatever. But my question is that the people that really knew that were all the health experts. So where were they saying all these things? I mean, we all should have had a chart, is what I'm saying, because we're still making decisions in this country based on information that's faulty. Like closing schools is a faulty decision. And lockdowns, like look at the California and New York, that are the states that are most locked down, are having just as many COVID cases as everywhere else. It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
California's having an exodus of people. I mean, people are fleeing there like it's the plague. Like, why are we even here? They just put out a new order, shutting down schools again for another year, shutting down restaurants and bars, shutting down places to get your haircut. Like, we don't need to be in barbershops or beauty salons. We're shutting those down again. It's like, what?
Well, unless you're the governor, unless you're a mayor or something, they're going to do all kinds of stuff. But I think the thing is that we've proven shutdown is going to work. I mean, the places that shut down have just as many new COVID cases as the places that aren't. So that obviously isn't the answer.
Right. Florida opened up everything. They're like, screw it. You guys, hey, you know what to do. You're Florida. And they were like, okay. The numbers really aren't that different from California, who locked down everything.
A lot more deaths in New York than Florida. And the deaths per million in New York are way higher than Florida. And New York locked down and Florida didn't. And Florida's got a bunch of old people, right? So
does New York.
Sure. But I mean, I think we've kind of proven the lockdowns aren't super effective, and closing down the schools certainly is. I mean, the children just aren't at risk.
Has the vaccine reached you yet?
I get my first dose tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, 8 a.m.
I was going to say, my stepbrother works in radiology for 3 different hospitals, and they told him it's mandatory. He's getting it Thursday.
So they didn't make it mandatory for us. And honestly, the weird thing about it is it's not going to stop the masking and the social distancing. The only reason I'm getting it, to be totally honest with you, is because I work in a hospital. And the thing about that is that there was somebody who said, like, if you had 20 doses of COVID vaccine and you had a nursing home with 20 residents and 20 employees, who should you give it to, the residents or the employees? The answer is the employees, because the residents aren't going anywhere. They're not being exposed to anyone but the employees. It's the employees who are going out and bringing it back to the residents, right?
Yeah. It's the idea of, if you're in an accident on a plane, put the oxygen mask on yourself and then help the person next to you.
Right. So you don't pass out and you can't help them.
Yeah. You have to be able to help them.
Right. So that's why I'm getting it. I'm getting it because I work in a hospital and I take care of a bunch of people. If it wasn't for that, I don't know if I would get it in the first round. I do know other doctors, and even an ID doc I know, who says they're not getting in the first round. We don't know a ton about the side effects like we would normally.
Yeah.
And so I think it's reasonable to wait if you're not in a high risk category, or if you're not a person taking care of people in high risk categories. I certainly think you could wait with children.
Well, I read online this morning that Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell got theirs today or yesterday. So if they're taking it, okay.
Well, luckily the politicians are taking it because, they spent the whole election cycle saying they weren't going to take it. So thank goodness they are. But if I grow a third arm, cool, right? I'll be good at baseball.
Listen, we'll play catch a whole new way. We're going to figure out how to spin this into a YouTube thing or an OnlyFans. You'll have an OnlyFans for a 3-arm pitching guy.
But if I grow a third arm, get it. And if I die, don't. If this is my last podcast, don't take the vaccine. Right. But I think there's decent arguments, but I think that the real idea about whether or not we're going to get away from masking and social distancing and really get over this thing is when the majority of people get vaccinated. That's when it's going to happen. It's not going to happen before that. Just because I get the vaccine doesn't mean I get to stop. And so if we really want that and we want to open as a country, I think we got to take the vaccine. That's the only thing that's really going to do it. But a lot of people got to get it. It can't be a few.
Like you're saying, even with the vaccine, people still have to wear masks. They still have to socially distance. I got to say, for like sports, basketball, NBA did it great with the bubble. Like watching them play sports in the bubble. I know it probably wasn't ideal for them to not be with their families like normal and to be in this weird quarantine environment, but like for entertainment wise, for us watching basketball and for gamesmanship, they were really like, I got nothing better to do. I might as well work on my game. And you got to see some really good competition. For football, it's a lot harder because of the distance and because of the fact that they play on different fields. You can't exactly have just one field where everybody plays. Mm-hmm. It's a lot different of a scenario for that. But even the NFL has done a great job of, no fans in the crowd. It's weird to see no fans in the crowd and have like the kind of fake noise in the background of fans.
Yeah.
But I mean, college football has done it okay. I mean, college football's had fans in the crowd, but they've been like, all right, we're gonna have like 30% capacity.
Right.
And you guys
Right,
space out if you haven't been in a group. And they've done a good job of
Mhm.
managing people. And you can see it whenever you see it online, is they're spaced out in groups where they're at least a distance away that's safe. And you're like, okay, well, this is manageable. I mean, and even with a vaccine, I think that's still gonna have to continue for a while.
For a
I
period.
mean,
Yeah, for a period. I mean, it's going to be when the majority of people end up getting vaccinated that it's probably going to be able to affect life well. When I think of the NFL, this is my thought about it, which is a little different, which is the fact that the NFL attempted to put themselves into bubbles, right?
yeah.
And then every time a team had an outbreak or had cases of COVID, the NFL comes in and starts fining them and doing all this stuff and saying, you broke protocol, you broke protocol. And I think like some of those ideas, they're great and you're doing the best you can do. However, we're not losing the sight of the fact that this is a global pandemic. And I'm sorry, you're not going to get big groups of people together anywhere that people aren't going to get cases. So you can do your best. But I think like we've said things like, oh, every death from COVID is due to this or due to that. I mean, it's due to a global pandemic. And think about the fact that historically these pandemics have killed like 1 to 2 million people. I mean, we're at 300,000 is not great, but it's like a lot better than it's been before. But the idea that you were going to stop death in any way, shape, or form is a stupid idea. It's just, it's not true and it's not factual.
Well, and here's a weird statistic is if you compare it to the amount of people who've died from tuberculosis that we haven't talked about.
Historically, you mean?
I mean, this year.
Oh, not that many people have died from tuberculosis, but
Here.
well, I guess, I mean, the most of the population of India has it, but they vaccinate and we don't because the numbers aren't enough. I mean, I know what you're saying, and I think your idea is good. I don't know that tuberculosis is the best disease to compare.
Well, and
we're not
calling anything the common cold either, which normally kills a few 100,000 people every year. Also, so
well,
I mean, so everything that's considered common cold is now it's corona.
Well, there's certain. So take the flu. And so there's certain populations where the death rate among the flu is much higher than coronavirus, and then there's other ones that's lower. So in the younger population, the flu is higher because they're very unlikely to die from corona. When you get to older people, then more older people are dying from coronavirus than the flu.
I just thought about the fact that a lot of people right now are going, "This is fucking boring." That's what I would do right now. I'd be like, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to fucking listen to this.
Now, look.
So we can pivot. Let's pivot.
You said that people will listen to anything you say.
They will. Mostly.
Until you talk about COVID, right?
But there's exhaustion when it comes to certain topics. I mean, there really is a point where you go, I don't care anymore. I mean, and that's the part about a lot of this is the information that you get. You go, I don't care anymore. Same thing with politics. I mean, in Georgia right now, you guys are dealing with a huge election issue. And I'm sure you were like, I don't even want to watch TV for the damn ads. This is ridiculous. You guys are calling me on the phone. You're sending me text messages. I don't want any of you now. Like if I had a third choice of, Alf, I'd select Alf just because Alf doesn't call me.
Listen, if you don't live in Georgia, you don't understand that basically every political dollar in the country has been dumped in this state. And like when I open my mail every single day, there's 6 political ads in it, 3 of them for one candidate, 3 of them for the other. They both essentially say the same thing about the other. And every TV show that you watch, like if there's 4 commercials, 3 of them are going to be political. Like so much money has been dumped in this state. It is stupid. And you're right. It's so saturated. It's crazy.
The crazy part is
ridiculous. Yeah.
If we took a fraction of that money that was spent in all of this voter crap, for promotions and stuff like that, if you took a fraction of that money, we could end homelessness in this country. We could pay off everyone's student debt. We could pay off all kinds of things. I mean, if you just took a small fraction of the money that were spent on politics.
Mm-hmm. I think the $400 million is the federal budget for elections, for the presidential elections in a year. So that's a lot of money, right? That's a lot of money. But
I heard it takes
kind of crazy.
I heard an economist talk on a podcast one time. He said it takes $30 million to end homelessness today. He goes, who do you know that has got $30 million? And I went, I know a few people.
Bill Gates, yeah. Hey, we talked today. So I have students that I work with at the hospital, and I was talking to a medical student today and a medical resident, and we were sort of going through patients, and we were talking about all of the unnecessary wasted stuff that was done for that patient that really didn't change the outcome of their care.
Yeah.
And because we do so much, and I basically made the comment like, if we'd stop doing all the unnecessary stuff, We could pay for healthcare for everyone who doesn't have insurance. Easy.
Not only that, but there seems to be a handshake agreement between insurance companies and hospitals where they inflate the charges of everything. I mean, a good example is like a simple saline dextrose bag costs $1 to make, and yet it's charged like $1,000 on your bill. When I had this stuff going with my eye, I got a bill from McLeod Hospital saying, "Oh, well, all this crap with your eye just cost $120,000." What?
Well, so there's a couple reasons. So there's a couple real reasons why that happens, and honestly, it's not really that. It happens that way for two reasons. Reason number one is because all of the insured people have to pay for the uninsured.
Yeah.
So a Tylenol costs $10 for you that has insurance because you have to pay for the Tylenol for someone else, like 15 other people that didn't have insurance.
Yeah.
But the other thing is this: it's sort of the way that they've set up medical reimbursement is the fact that they set up medical reimbursement in sort of chunks where they say, when you bill a patient, we're going to give you this percentage of that money. You're not getting 100%, you're getting 20. Okay, fine. I'll just jack my bill up by 80% so that you pay me what you would have paid me anyway, right?
Right.
So there's a couple of reasons why that's the way that it is.
I mean, and the doctors who've worked on my eye, I guarantee you they're not getting the money they should have gotten for doing this miraculous surgery to my eye. I mean, one guy went in with a laser and like reattached the retina, and I'm like, whatever they're paying you is not enough. I mean, Jesus, the fact that you could do that, holy crap. I mean,
yeah, right. No,
I went from no sight to sight. I mean,
it's pretty amazing how physician salaries and medical provider salaries, nursing salaries have really gone up, but those salaries have really gone back. And it's one of the ways, like every single thing that insurance companies do, they do based on whatever the federal government does. So when Medicare or Medicaid comes out with some guideline, the insurance companies just go along with it because they're like, we can't possibly come up with terrible crap like they can. They're like, they're so much better at it than we are. So, but part of the cutting of trying to cut medical costs was definitely cutting physician salaries big time. A general surgeon, I mean, they used to be one of the richest people in the country and they had so much power, and now, I'm not saying they don't make good money. They do, but it's not nearly what it was.
Well, I mean, my stepdad was an ear, nose, and throat surgeon, and he was very good at what he did, but he would pay a good third of his salary just for malpractice insurance.
Sure. Oh,
because he was like, if I don't have that, then I can't practice.
Want to know why you have trouble trying to find someone to deliver your baby? It's because lawsuits among OBGYNs are so ridiculous that that insurance for them, so many people left the field because they can't even afford it.
And you got Jenny McCarthy out there giving you advice about whether or not you get, immunized or not. It's like, what?
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, it's something else.
You got to run.
But I got to feed the dogs. I'm 30 minutes late.
Okay.
Somebody just texted me from work, but that's no big deal. But I do have to feed the dogs. What's happening is I'm sitting in this chair and the dogs are making a continuous loop around here, going, "Hey, fool, where's my food?"
Hey,
right?
You're behind schedule. Like,
yeah, they're very upset about it. Oh, listen, yeah, because sometimes they get fed at 5:15. So to them, they're probably thinking I'm 45 minutes late. They're probably thinking they're going to die.
That's it. I'm going to die.
Right. That's it. It's over. It's all over for me. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll wrap this up. So everybody listening, Greg has a podcast called 5 and 40. Check it out. It's on everywhere you can find podcasts, and he doesn't do them regularly. So hound him on, hey, where's the other podcast? It's like, put out some more. That's how he knows you're listening, so that you can do that and egg him on and that kind of thing.
I'm going to do this weekend.
If you're in the Albany area, check out 95, NINETY, the number 5. And he's got a cover band for the 90s. It's pretty cool. A lot of fun, a lot of energy. Even with social distancing, they've been able to perform here and there. I know that right now the shows aren't going as normal, but they'll come back. Check out on YouTube. I'm sure there's videos online of them performing. People have recorded them and put them online.
After the first of the year, we'll be back doing some shows. There's definitely an outdoor venue here in Albany, which is the first one we really want to play at, right?
There is a Facebook page, 95 in Albany.
95 Albany Band is what it's called.
Okay.
So
check him out.
Yep.
And let him know that you want to hear more, and he'll do more because he bows to peer pressure. That's how I got him to do a podcast.
If you could get right now, I'm under a lot of peer pressure from the dogs. If you give me that kind of pressure, I do a damn podcast every day, right?
There you go.
But But I do have a few people at work, like 3 today, that asked me about my next podcast. So if people are listening, I like to do it. I do like to do it. It's one of those, I think about something like going to college or something that's hard to do in life, and really the biggest step is doing it, starting it, and then it goes quick from there.
Yeah.
Every podcast I do, it's like it takes me forever to start it, but once I get started, I like doing it, and it goes really fast. You think it's, so I do like it. I don't know if I like it as much as you like it. If you want to say Podcasters Podcast, you are a podcaster, sir.
There you go.
Yeah.
If anybody's out there playing Animal Crossing New Horizons, hit us up. We will give you lots of details.
Get to this podcast that we
listen, you got to feed the dogs. Crossing. You can't talk about Animal Crossing now.
Oh my God.
That could be a topic of your next podcast. I could be a guest on yours and we could talk about it, but we're going to wrap this one up.
We need to do an addendum to this podcast.
I mean,
this was the short part, and we now have 7-hour addendum coming about Animal Crossing.
No, I could be a guest. Listen, I'm trying to push myself to be a guest on yours so we could talk about Animal Crossing as a subject.
Let's do it. Yes. Yeah. You know what we can do is my podcast is 5 and 40. We talk about 5 topics about, somewhere around 8 minutes a topic.
We could talk about rocks,
pumpkins.
Rocks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When we talk about pumpkins, I am going to leave it to you. You are the king of pumpkins. But anyway.
All right. So thank you to everybody who's listening. Please remember to hit like. That helps a lot. Also, rate, review, subscribe, share it with your friends. Who knows? Somebody out there might enjoy this conversation. And if you enjoy this, please remember to hit the little notification bell, because you'll get more information of whenever we post one, and you'll be up. Check out Greg's podcast, 5 and 40. And thank you to everybody who's listening. And I always end this by saying, cue the cow. Do you want to do it?
Oh, yeah. Cue the cow.
Cue the cow. Love it.
I want you guys to give me more likes. Give me more